I'm Ken Hanks, and I'd like to welcome everybody here today for the Staying Safe on Campus class. We're not only going to talk about some tips to stay safe on campus, but we're also going to go over the campus's emergency action plan as well. So hopefully before you leave today, you're going to know how all of this stuff works here on campus. One of the things I want to encourage you to do is ask questions. I don't mind if you raise your hand and interrupt me during the course of the class and ask a question. If I can't answer that question, I'll certainly find the answer to that question and get back to you. So feel free at any time to ask questions about anything that I go over today. I want to start the class by just telling you about a couple of cases. Let me give you a little background on myself. I started at the Reidsville Police Department in 1982. Was on patrol for 5 years. Then I went into the Detective Division. Worked in the Detective Division for 11 years. I was promoted up the ranks from Detective Sergeant to Detective Lieutenant while I was in the Detective Division. And for 9 years, I worked all of the major cases, which meant I either supervised or worked all the homicides, the armed robberies, and stuff like that. Then I went back to patrol for 11 years, and then I finished my career, my last 3 years, as the captain of the Detective Division. So I've seen a whole lot of stuff during 30 years and 3 months there, and hopefully I can relate some of that stuff to you today to show you how it goes along with staying safe on campus as well. I want to start with a couple of cases that I worked. Lady goes into Rose's one day, and if you're familiar with Rose's, they've got checkout lines, but they've also got a round kind of a service desk there that you can check out at sometime. The lady picks up a couple of items and takes them up to the service desk to check out, and while she's standing there, she lays her wallet on the counter. And she realizes she may want to pick up a couple of other things. So she walks away from the counter for just a couple of moments to look at some other stuff that's on the counter because the lady wasn't ready to check her out at that time. Unfortunately for her, there was a whole group of thieves standing at the counter. They were actually returning property that they had stolen in the store earlier, and they were returning it to get the money back for it. And of course, they see her lay her wallet down. One of them casually walks over, puts her purse up under the counter, and slides that wallet into her purse. Thankfully for that lady, there was a video camera there, and we were able to videotape what happened. We ran it on the news. We had people call in and tell us who it was, and we ended up making an arrest and get the lady's wallet back. And I don't know if she ever got everything back that she was supposed to get back, but at least we were able to solve the case. On a little more severe case that I worked, elderly lady about 72 years old was at her home one night over on the north side of town, and she hears a knock on her door at about 11 o'clock. Well, she goes to the door, and there's a young male standing on her porch, and he says, "Look, I need to use your phone for a few minutes." Well, unfortunately for her, she opens the door for him. He forces his way into the house, holds her at knife point. For the next 3 to 4 hours, he rapes, sodomizes her, holds her at knife point, threatens her. She doesn't know whether she's going to live or die. Her main concern was she had a 35-year-old mentally handicapped son in the back room, and she was scared that he was going to walk out and see what happened. That was, believe it or not, when I interviewed her, that was one of her main concerns, that didn't happen. But over the course of the next several hours, she was in total terror. She didn't know what was going to happen to her next, whether she was going to live or die. Of course, she calls the police the next morning, and eventually, after serving a search warrant and getting this guy's DNA, we were able to prosecute him. That was the first case that was prosecuted in Rockingham County, the first rape case that DNA was used. So it turned out well for the fact that we caught who did it, and he's still in prison to this day. This happened back in about 1994, something like that. But the moral to these two stories are, both of these incidents could have been avoided. The lady shouldn't have laid her purse down on the counter and walked away, and the other lady should have not have opened her door. She should have went straight to the phone, called 911 and said, look, I've got a strange guy standing at my door wanting to come in and use the phone. How about getting somebody down here? So the point I'm trying to make is there's a lot of things that happen that can be avoided if you'll just, think about what you're doing before it happens, and most of the time you can avoid incidents like that. The first thing we want to talk about is what Rockingham Community College is doing to keep people safe. I can tell you there are a lot of things going on the campus right now that we're working on to make sure that our staff and students are safe on this campus. Campus security and safety are important issues in post-secondary education today. Providing students nationwide with a safe environment in which to learn and keeping students, parents, and employees well informed about campus security are goals of all educational institutions, and that's why we're here today. So you can learn more about how to stay safe while you're on campus. We have day classes, we have night classes. We have an open campus here. You never know who may be wandering around on this campus, and believe me, there are criminals everywhere, and there are weird people everywhere. So you really need to be aware of the situation around you at all time and who's around you at all time. The first thing I want to talk about are some personal safety tips. Do not hesitate to call security if something doesn't feel right. We all have what is called the fight or flight instinct in us. I'm sure at some point in everybody's life here, you have had that feeling, this just doesn't feel right, or this just doesn't look right. Well, most of the time, if it doesn't feel right or doesn't look right, it's not right. And you need to make sure that you let security know, even if it turns out to be nothing. Just go ahead and call us and say, look, I saw this guy walking around in my area earlier today, and it just doesn't look right. You might want to check him out, and just give us a description of the guy or something like that, and let us look into it and see, is he supposed to be on campus, or was he over here for business, or just wandering around. We actually found a kid a couple of weeks ago. He's been wandering around our campus all semester. He's not a student, but he had a book bag on his back, just like he was a student, wandering around the campus, came to the campus almost every single day. And we confronted him and said, are you a student here? Well, he pulled out a student ID, but unfortunately it was a student ID from like 2 years ago that he still had in his possession. But he was not a student on this campus. He would wander around into the class. They caught him in the gym a couple of times, wandering around. So you never know. Just because they've got a book bag on their back and they're wandering around, and we all know what book bags have nowadays after the Boston incident. You never know what's in a book bag. So those are the kind of things that can happen that you may not be aware of, but it just may not look right to you or something or other. Like, I've never seen this kid in a class here before. Maybe somebody needs to look in and see who he is. So just remember, that instinct means something to you. Program the security number into your office and cellular phones. Now, I was told yesterday that the college is looking at a new phone system and new phones in all the offices and everything, and they're going to have those numbers on them when they put them in. I don't know how far in the future that's going to be, and the reason that was brought up is because I actually went to Nancy and we talked about printing off the emergency numbers on stickers so we could put them at everybody's phone. But remember, it's not a bad idea to have those things programmed into your phone, so as soon as you pick the phone up and you can hit something, it'll dial those numbers for you. Remember, security is always there with a radio. If you dial the 2299 extension number, somebody's going to answer the phone and they're going to be able to come and help you no matter what's going on. So if you'll just remember that $22.99, you dial the school number 342-4261 and then the extension $22.99, and there's somebody at that number all the time. So feel free to call that number anytime you don't feel comfortable about something, or you need some help from security, or just anything that you may need that you think security may be able to help you with. This is very important, and it happens all the time on this campus. If you're on campus working after hours, keep your office doors locked and notify security. Just pick up the phone, call the $22.99 number, and let us know that you're on the campus. We will come by and check on you. We will, if you need anything while you're on the campus, just call us and let us know. We'll escort you to your car if you need for us to. So if you happen to be on campus after hours or at night, or you just don't feel comfortable about being here by yourself or something or other, just call the security number and the security officer will come by and check on you. If you need a door unlocked, we'll take care of that. Anything that you need while you're on this campus, we'll be there to help you in anything that you need. So just keep that in mind. Let us know if you're on campus after hours. And again, I'm going to point out that we'll check on you. We'll give you escorts to your vehicle. And I know in some of the offices have money and stuff like that. So you know, you may want to be taking some money out of an office one night, and you need a security officer there. So just give us a call if you need anything like that. Do not carry unnecessary valuables such as jewelry, cash, or anything like that with you. Let me explain to you to what extremes people will go to steal from you. I had a case one time where an elderly lady was walking into Lowe's Foods with her handbag around her over her shoulder. Two guys from Greensboro drive through the parking lot. One of them hangs out the window, reaches over and grabs that lady's strap on her purse and jerks it off her shoulder. It dislocates her shoulder. So people will go to the extreme to steal from you. I mean, that to me is unbelievable that they would actually do something like that. Fortunately, a week later, they were caught in Greensboro doing the same thing. So we were able to charge, and they actually confessed to the one they did in Reevesville. But I mean, that sounds impossible that you're walking to go into Lowe's Food and somebody rides by you and reaches out the window of a vehicle and jerks your purse off your shoulder. But that actually happened. So it's just an example that people will do anything. You just never know what they might do. If confronted by any individuals demanding your property, turn over any item they demand. Your safety is more valuable than personal property. I want to tell you a story that really hits home on this point. A local merchant in Reevesville, several years ago, he owned a service station, a little grocery store service station, for years. His family had owned it. He had been there for years. Three guys walk into his store one night to rob him. He always kept a pistol under the counter. As they're walking out the door, he pulls the pistol out. They see it and fire at him and shoot him one time. I was the first officer on the scene. By the time I got there, he had actually walked across the street to the neighbor's house and was sitting on the front porch swing. It was a small caliber weapon that shot him, and he actually was talking to us. We took a statement from him. We thought he was going to be fine. They sent him to the hospital, of course. 2 weeks later, he got a staph infection in the hospital and died. He probably didn't have over $300 in that store at that time. He lost his life. I know his family well. I know his daughter. I know his son-in-law, grandchildren. And he lost his life over about $300. And it's just not worth it. You know, if somebody confronts you, give them what they got. You know, there's a good chance when, you know, they may end up being caught. you know, and you may be able to get your property back. But there's nothing worth that. You know, he never got to see his grandchildren grow up or anything like that. So just keep that in mind. You know, you never know when something like that may happen, but cooperate with them, you know, because chances are good that they'll leave you and just take what you've got, because that's what they're there for anyway. If possible, walk in groups of 2 or more. There is safety in numbers. A fine example of that is, had a guy walking down Market Street one night. He was very proud of himself because he had designer clothes on. I mean, he had the latest thing that comes out. And you know how kids are now. They want the designer clothes. You know, they don't want just a pair of jeans like we used to grow up in, you know, with a couple of holes in it. They wear the designer clothes now. Well, 4 guys from Caswell County come riding by. There's a couple of them on the back of the truck, a couple of them in the front of the truck. They see the kid walking down the street by himself. They get off the truck, strip him down to his underwear, and take his clothes. Took his wallet as well. They go back to Caswell County. Unfortunately for them, they went to a party that night, and they're flashing this guy's wallet around with his ID and all in it at the party. And thank heavens there was an honest person at that party that called Reidsville and said, hey, did y'all have a robbery in Reidsville tonight? Because if you did, there's a group of guys at this party bragging about it. But this kid was actually walking down the street by himself one night, not thinking anything was going to happen to him, and all of a sudden 4 guys ride by, strip him down to his underwear, and take all of his clothes and his wallet and everything. So, you know, I'm sure if there'd have been somebody else with him that night, that wouldn't have happened. Of course, he was back on Market Street. That wasn't a real safe place to be walking around back in the late 80s and early 90s anyway, but that's beside the point. I mean, just remember, if you're walking out of a building at night, and that comes back again to security, if you don't feel comfortable walking out to your car at night, call security. We'll be glad to walk out with you. Do not leave valuables in your vehicle in plain view, such as CDs, your purse or wallet, or anything else of value. The best thing for you to do when you get out of your car is take your purse or any of your valuables and put them in the trunk of your car. Most people are not going to go to the trouble of breaking into the trunk of a car to steal stuff. Something unbelievable to me, my wife bought a new car about a month ago, one of those new CR-Vs. Well, what do they have in the car, in the console? They have a space big enough for her to put her purse in. That's what it's for her to put her purse in this car. And I'm thinking, who designed that? You know, women should not leave their purses in the console in plain view where somebody can walk over and look in the window. Of course, the first thing I told my wife is, you better not ever use that. But the safest thing for you to do is anything of value that you have, put it in the trunk of your car, because that is the safest area for you to keep anything of value. I know women are near and dear to their purses and everything, but people will not break into the trunk of a car to steal stuff. In the 30 years I was in law enforcement, I can probably count on 1 or 2 fingers how many times somebody broke into the trunk of a car. So keep that in mind. And this is an invitation for a potential thief. They walk around looking in cars. Since I've been here at the college, I've actually had 2 or 3 calls on, look, I got a guy in the parking lot that's just walking around looking in windows of cars. And that's what they'll do. They'll walk around, they'll look in the window, they'll see if there's anything that they think of value in the car, and they'll open the door if it's not locked and steal it. So don't leave anything out there that they can see. Make sure your windows are rolled up and the doors are locked. You know, there's a lot of people that don't lock the doors to their vehicle because they say, well, I don't want somebody breaking the window out of my car to go in and steal something. Again, I can probably count on one hand in the 30 years I was a cop that people broke windows out to steal stuff. Remember, thieves are lazy. That's why they're thieves. They're not going to go to the trouble of breaking a window out. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. They're lazy. That's why they're too lazy to work. That's why they're walking around stealing stuff. and most of the time, unless they see something that's really valuable in that car that they really want, they're not going to go to the trouble of breaking your window out to get in it. Plus, they're not going to have it, generally not going to have anything with them that they can break that window out with, unless they can find a rock nearby or something like that. But that's one of the things that I've learned over the course of my career about thieves. They're just lazy. They're just not going to go to any trouble to steal anything. And breaking a window out takes some effort, and they're not going to go to that trouble to do it. Make sure you have the right key in your hand when you get to your vehicle. This is especially true at night. Also, I want to suggest to you, have a little flashlight attached to your keychain so you can see. Look in your vehicle before you get in it. Take that flashlight, if it's at night, shine it in your vehicle and look in your vehicle to make sure there's nobody laying down in the back seat or anything like that. We have actually run into cases where people would get into people's cars and lay down in the seat so they wouldn't see them. When they get there, they'd rob them when they got there. So take time, and also another thing that's suggested is kind of glance up under your car. Make sure nobody's laying up under your car as well. But you can also have something like a whistle on your keychain in case something does happen or somebody does approach you, start blowing that whistle. But I strongly suggest that you keep a little flashlight on your keychain so you can look in your vehicle when you're approaching it at night and actually look around your vehicle. I know a lot of cars now with the automatic door locks, your lights come on inside the car. Well, if you unlock your car and walk up to it and your lights come on, take a few minutes to just glance around in your car and make sure there's nobody in your car. Because a good thief can actually get in a car. It doesn't take them long to get in a car. And that's a safety issue that's very important, especially for females. You know, take a look in your car before you get in it. If you see anything suspicious, call security. Back to the fight or flight thing. You've got that instinct. If you see something suspicious, call. A good example of that happened on this campus just a couple of weeks ago. We had a group of kids walking around on campus. They were wandering around in just about every building on this campus. They actually went to the humanities building, went into the basement of the building and flipped all of the power switches off and cut all the lights off in the parking lot. Then they went over to the gymnasium. They had a laptop computer sitting there with some music playing while they were working out in Mr. Gentry's class, and they're upstairs working out, and all of a sudden the music stops. They look down and there's two kids running out of the gym with a laptop computer. These kids have been wandering around the campus all day long. So you never know when, you know, somebody that's not supposed to be there is there. So if you happen to see people wandering around like that or see anything suspicious, like I said, it doesn't matter if it doesn't turn out to be anything. You know, the thing about it is it could be something. So just let us know, and you know, a lot of times you can avoid stuff like that. Thank heavens these kids were caught though. So, and the laptop, they were seen by so many people, they actually threw the laptop down in the parking lot at the BLLC building, and the kid got his laptop back too. So that turned out okay. Now let me touch base on some office tips. Lock your office whenever you leave, even if you will only be gone a minute. Again, there's always, it could always be somebody wandering around, looking into offices. I know numerous times we've had calls where people said, well, I just left my office for just a moment. I come back in, and when I check my wallet, my money's gone. There are people that actually wander around. A fine example is churches. What do ladies do that sing in the choir? They leave their purses in the choir room before they go up to the choir. You cannot imagine how many cases there have been where people ride around on Sunday morning, they go into churches, into the choir rooms, and steal ladies' money out of their purses. So, like I said, people will do anything because they're too lazy to work, they steal. And they think of any way to steal. Keep your purse, wallet, and other valuables in a secure location, such as a locked desk or filing cabinet. And I'm going to suggest that this is just during the day when you're there, okay? Because locked desks and filing cabinets are not the most secure places in the world. It doesn't take a good thief very long to get into a filing cabinet or a desk drawer. So just make sure that if you're going to keep something in there, you're just keeping it in there temporary. Because just remember, it only takes a few seconds for a theft to take place. You know, I think one of the cases that we got the most often or got them on a regular basis was thefts at the hospital. You know, there's a lot of people that wander, and just like here, just like on this campus, there's a lot of people that wander around in a hospital. And we would get calls all the time that somebody had come into somebody's office and stole something out of a desk drawer or something like that. So just keep in mind, this campus is so open here that the same thing could happen here. So just make sure that you always have your valuables secure. And this is probably something that a lot of us don't have to worry about. Do not bring excessive amounts of cash to work. Thank heavens for credit cards, right? But if you got that big bundle of cash, don't bring it to work with you, okay? Unless you owe your bookie or something other and you paid him off that day. Do not leave cash unattended or in the office, especially overnight or over the weekend. Remember, you've always got security here. You can always call us to escort you or pick up your money and take it to the appropriate people so it can be locked up over the weekend. To tell you what kind of extremes people will go to steal, there's a business in Reidsville that's been there for years and years. And because it has been there for so long, it's Big Apple Farm Supply. Because that building was so old, they had one of those huge vaults in the back of the building back there. And as many times as I went into Big Apple and as many cases that I worked, I did not know that they had this vault in this building. But it's one of those old-timey big vaults in the back room. Well, one weekend several months ago, somebody broke into that building and beat the door off of that vault. They had to have been in that building for hours beating the door. They actually were smart one way. They used the tools that were already in there that Big Apple Farm Supply sold. But they literally, when we walked in, there was cement dust everywhere because it was encased, you know, inside with cement and all. But beat the door completely off that vault. Well, of course, unfortunately for them, they didn't keep very much in that vault. But that just shows you to what extreme people will go to. I mean, they had to have stayed in there for hours beating that door off that vault. So don't leave money overnight. If you have to, call security. We'll be glad to escort you to your car or pick the money up and take it to the appropriate people to secure overnight. But you see, people will go to extreme if they know there's money somewhere. Fortunately for us, we have security riding around the campus all night long, though. That's one good thing. Remember, desks and filing cabinets are not secure enough. It only takes a thief just a few seconds to get into a filing cabinet or into a desk drawer. There's probably not many of us sitting in here that hadn't broke into their desk drawer or filing cabinet at one time or another because they lost the key. So, protect your property by marking your valuables with a unique identifier. This is a great idea that very few people take advantage of. You know, we've got computers now. If we were smart, everything that we bought, we would log that the serial number into that computer, so we would always have it. I don't know if all of you are familiar or not, but with your computers, they have stuff called LoJack. You know, a lot of the phones, a lot of the cell phones now have trackers, automatic trackers inside of them. And if you lose your cell phone, you can actually pull that up and tell where if it's on, you can tell where your cell phone is at. We've actually tracked criminals down because we tracked them with their cell phone. The State Bureau of Investigation would call in the unit from the FBI that has a tracker. We had a kid that was wanted for several break-in and enterings, and then he advanced to some robberies, and he never knew it because we never told him, but we chased him all over town for a couple of hours because we called that unit in and they were pinging off of his cell phone, and we knew exactly where he was going. We ended up crawling up under a house and pulling him out from under the house because he still had his cell phone on, and that's where it pinged to. So I'm suggesting to you, mark your valuable property with some type of identifier number. If you've got a computer, put LoJack in it. I went to a class one time, a LoJack class, and it's amazing. We sat in class and watched them track computers that were stolen down on another computer. They could literally tell you exactly where that stolen computer was at because it had a LoJack in it. So just an idea for you. If you've got a valuable laptop or something or other, it's a good idea to have a service like that in it. Tell you a little story about stuff like I actually went into I was walking the campus a couple of weeks ago, and I went into the gym, and everybody was in the weight room working out. Well, I saw one of the kids walk out of the weight room, laid his cell phone down on the table outside in the gym, and walk back in the weight room to work out. And I'm thinking, boy, I hope I don't get a call on that cell phone in the next few minutes. If you are entrusted with a key to a specific area, never lend it to anybody, to anyone, and keep it secured. I guess probably everybody in here has a key to their work area, and of course, if you've got somebody that you trust, it's okay. But be careful about lending keys to people. That's you know, sometimes those keys never come back to you, and you don't know who's got a key to this office or who's got a key to that office, especially if you keep money or valuables in your office. So that's a good tip there to keep in mind. And report immediately if it's missing, so we can know. We may have to change the locks on the door or something other like that, but just make sure that if you do happen to lose your keys or anything like that, you report it to us so we can address the issue and see what we need to do. If you receive an annoying or obscene phone call, hang up. Now, y'all are probably saying, why are we going over phone calls, you know? Well, I can tell you, this can become an issue on a campus like this because of domestic violence, because of nuts that are out there. I'll give you an example. Probably everybody in the room knows who Cindy Farmer is, the news anchor for, what is it, Channel 2 or something or other. I can't remember exactly what TV station she works for, but Cindy has been around for years as a news anchor and everything. Well, there's actually a company in Massachusetts that the only thing they do is if a celebrity is being harassed by someone or stalked, rather than charging that person, they send people down to counsel with that person and basically threaten or warn them, you better stay away from them or the next time you're going to jail. Well, Cindy had a stalker from Reedsville. So they sent this company down and we met with them, and we went out to this guy's house and they talked to him. He had been stalking her for years. She actually at one point thought he was her friend. When Cindy had her first child, he came to a function and she was close enough to him that she actually allowed him to hold her child. Can you believe that? Boy, I bet she regretted that later on. But she thought this guy was okay. But he had been stalking her for years. He went to every event she ever went to. He taped, when we went into his house, he had a videotape of every newscast and every show she had ever done. She actually mentioned him on the news one time and said, "Hey, I'd like to say hello to my friend Travis." And that was his name. So she actually mentioned him on her news network one time. But this guy was a nut. He had been stalking her for years, and she finally realized, hey, this guy's not my friend, he's a stalker. So we went to his house, and he had a room full of videos where he had videotaped everything she ever did on TV. So you never know what these people will do. Of course, we addressed it with him. They never heard anything from him again, so that worked out okay. But imagine what kind of feeling she had when she realized she allowed him to hold her child. So write down the time of the call, what the caller said, and note any background noise you hear. And make sure you call security immediately so we are aware of it. We need to know if something like this is happening. Like I said, you never know where this may be going. This may be a domestic issue. This may be somebody that's stalking you that you don't even know. There are several different issues that this could be, and we need to be aware of it so we can address it. If we need to, call the sheriff's department and let them know. Set up some type of trace on your phone. Before I left the police department, I actually had a lady at one of the local businesses that was receiving harassing phone calls about 30 times a day. As it turned out, it was a guy that lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and that's where the calls were coming through from. But for some reason, he picked her out. We don't know how he got her number or anything, but he just continuously harassed her. That they had to change the number to the business to stop him from, and he was actually calling her direct extension number. So, and to this day, we don't know how he ended up getting that. So I'll make sure you make security aware if something like that's going on. Report any suspicious person loitering in your area to security immediately. And we've already talked about this. Like I said, the kid with the book bag that'd been on campus the whole semester walking around acting like he was a student. You just never know what these people may end up doing. Be alert to strangers in your office area. You know, most of the people in here know the people that are supposed to be in their area. So it's not hard for you to figure out, hey, I don't know who this is. I don't know what they're up to or anything like that. So if you got that little feeling, you know, that this just isn't right, make sure you let us know so we can check into it, find out who they are. And always report the loss or theft of keys, equipment, or valuables immediately. One of the biggest problems we ran into at the police department was that people would have a break into their car or something, and they would just have some change or something stolen from it, and they wouldn't bother to report it. Well, a lot of times we would continue to have stuff like that in the neighborhood, and finally they would really do something major. You know, they'd end up breaking into a house, or they'd end up stealing a car or something like that. And then when it hit the paper that this was going on, we'd get phone calls from people saying, hey, this may have had something to do. I walked out the other morning to go to work, and I found my door standing open on my car, but there wasn't anything missing out of the car, so I didn't call you. Or somebody rifled through my glove compartment, but they didn't steal anything, so I didn't bother to call you. So it's always good to let security know if there's something going on, and sometimes you can avoid other things that may stem from that. And the point being, let us know what happens. All crimes should be reported so we can see if it ties into anything else. Do I have any questions on that? Does anybody have any questions about the safety tips? Okay. We're going to go into the Campus Emergency Action Plan now. The first thing we're going to talk about is a tornado watch. A watch is issued by National Weather Service when weather conditions are favorable for tornadoes. That doesn't mean that one's been sighted or anything. It just means that it's favorable for that. And that is monitored by the college by weather radio, TV, and internet. So we try to keep up with the weather when there is a weather alert or be on the lookout for certain things. We keep up with that and monitor it so we can let you know. Now, a tornado warning, yes, I'm sorry. Do you have a question? You just yawning.
A couple weeks ago, we had a tornado warning
Mm-hmm.
in Washington County, but no alarms went off here. I mean, how does that system actually work?
Well, one of the ways it's supposed to work, and we're going to talk about that, is the alerts go out over the campus. The email, they put it on the screen and everything. But I've been talking to Jason and them about the Eagle alerts as well. One of the things I'm going to push for in the next semester is that everybody on this campus that's a student or a faculty member is on this Eagle alert. So when those alerts come out, you actually get a text on it. So I guess it's a text that those kind of things are going on. going on.
But who actually receives the weather alert and has to send it out?
Well, a lot of times it's people over in administration, but we monitor it on our computer as well. If we know that there's bad weather coming, we monitor the TV stations all the time to see if they put out any alerts or anything like that. That's one of the issues that we really need to address more, is to make sure that we are alerted so we know, so we can send out those warnings. So, and that may be something that you guys can help us with.
If you work with 911, they can send it straight through.
Right, and that's something that we need to look into. Yes, ma'am.
Has there been any discussion of improving cell phone service?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you mentioned Eagle alerts.
J-
And I think it would be a great way to get out messages, but the problem is for a lot of people that their phones may not receive the text message depending on where you are on campus because cell phone service.
That's right, and we've talked about that. Jason and them are working on the cell phone service right now. They are looking at different ways to make it better. I know that's one of the issues that Sheriff Page talked to me about when I first came out here, that we need to do something about the cell phone service in this area, because they have no cell phone service over there either. So, but I know for a fact that Jason and them are looking into that right now and working on that to try to get better cell phone service on campus. Actually, I talked to him just a week or so ago about it, what they were doing.
Isn't part of the problem too, though, Kenny, the county commissioners and, like I said, this has been going on for years.
Always
There
comes
was
back to
even a guy
politics.
that offered land to put towers on.
Mhm.
And it's like a political mess.
Yeah.
It keeps getting stuck on how to remedy it.
Yes, sir. I agree. But I know that Jason is working on that right now. So, and these are the ways that we have that we notify people. The campus-wide email, make sure that you're signed up for that. And again, that's something I want to work on next semester, is to make sure all these students are on board with all of this stuff. Telephone calls to the secretaries, we know that what they'll do is they'll call the secretaries in all the building and let them know, hey, we're on an alert, so they can let the buildings know. And then the video system that we have.
I know you mentioned the new telephone service, and I guess the idea is that a lot of the classrooms will have telephones now.
Yes, ma'am, they will.
that be utilized in case of a warning?
Yes, ma'am, I'm
Because
sure it
the
will be.
secretary gets a message for her to run around the building and let everybody know. It's,
Yeah,
you know.
I'm not a part of that, but I'm sure that's
Okay.
what that's going to include. Yes, ma'am. If a tornado or severe weather is imminent for the campus, an administrator will issue one long blast of at least 30 seconds on the building horn system. Okay. Now this is the things that we need to be aware of. Remember that a tornado warning is a long blast of 30 seconds. So if you hear that, we need to make sure that we get to the refuge areas immediately. And remember now, all of the buildings have posted on the bulletin board or on the wall somewhere the refuge areas. I suggest that everybody, when you walk into your building, one of the first things you do is look at your refuge areas and make sure you know where you're supposed to go to when this happens. It's too late when that horn goes off, you know, to run down the hall and look and see where you're supposed to go. Walk in the building, make sure you know what, because one of the things that you're responsible for is all those students too. You need to be able to tell those students where they're supposed to go to. And as teachers and administrators, we're responsible for those students here. So just take a glance at, you know, where you're supposed to go when you have a tornado warning. Student, faculty, and staff should remain in the refuge area until an all clear signal is given, and that's 2 short blasts of the horn. Was everybody on campus when we did our last tornado drill? Does everybody know what that horn sounds like? Okay. Now, a lockdown procedure of the college is appropriate when a member of the college community is believed to be in imminent danger. Now, that doesn't just mean an active shooter on campus. There's a lot of different things that can initiate a lockdown. A prisoner escaping from the jail over here. A lockdown because of some safety issues at the high school, at the middle school, at the elementary school. Of course, if you've got an active shooter on the campus at the high school, we're going to lock this campus down right here too, because he could easily walk across the street onto our campus and do that. So just an active shooter on this campus is not the only reason that we would have a lockdown on this campus. It could be several other issues. Only the president or the president's designee may invoke a lockdown. And there's a certain area where these buttons are to set these horns off is the reason for that. Now, a lockdown notification is short blast over the college's horn for at least 30 seconds. Remember, a tornado warning is a long blast for 30 seconds. A lockdown or short blast for 30 seconds. And think of it as kind of a panic situation. You're hearing that horn and it sounds like a panic situation. So that's your lockdown. That's the all clear. The all clear is 2 short blasts of about 10 seconds. And you'll receive notifications from the campus-wide emails, the phone calls to the secretaries, and messages on the video system as well. Now, also keep in mind, if we have a lockdown of this building, we're going to notify the sheriff department immediately. And they're going to lock down entrances and exits to this campus. They're going to put deputies at every entrance and every exit on this campus, and nobody will be able to get in, nobody will be able to get out as well until they're all clear. Yes, ma'am? I'm going to run right through this, okay? And then, of course, they'll announce lockdown in the buildings. Faculty are to direct students and staff into a classroom immediately. Close blinds and place students away from doors, and that's very important. Close your blinds so people can't look in the windows. Because active shooters, in my experience and all the ones that I've studied and read about, are looking for immediate targets. They're not going to hunt targets down. They're not going to break into doors or break into windows or break into classrooms to target somebody. Turn off lights and equipment and remain in that classroom until the all clear announcement. That'll either be the short blast on the horn. You may have a deputy sheriff come into the room and telling you everything's clear. It just depends on what the situation is. And if evacuation occurs, all persons will be directed to a specific location. So let's say, for instance, this building's been cleared and we're ready to take everybody out of it. They'll direct you as to where you should go, a deputy sheriff or one of the security officers. Persons in hallways and other areas should be directed to the nearest classroom or lockable area by building personnel. And persons outside the building should stop, drop, and remain still, not come in and out of the buildings. And of course, like I said before, if we have a lockdown, we'll have deputy sheriffs at the entrances and exits trying to keep people from coming in or going out of the campus. And staff should remain in the areas where they are located, secure doors, and turn off lights. Make sure you turn the lights off so they can't look in a window and see you in there. Remain in the designated area until directed by RCC administrator or law enforcement officer until an all clear signal, which is 2 short blasts on the horn. That's the all clear for tornado, and that's the all clear for lockdown as well. And a tornado alarm, as I just explained, is a long blast for 30 seconds. A lockdown is short blast for 30 seconds. And the all clear for both alarms is the 2 short blast, 2 short blasts for 10 seconds. And you can find this emergency action plan on the campus computer. So just go to the RCC employee portal, and that emergency action plan is on that. Do I have any questions? I'm sorry I had to run through this last part quickly because we kind of run out of time. Yes, sir.
You know, in addition to what you're doing here, and the college needs money to address safety. Let's just cut the crap, right? Like Joyce brought up, IDs for everybody one time, and things like perhaps some protective equipment for classrooms. It takes money, and right now the legislature's harsh, but I don't know if you talk to other security guys, you know, or people throughout the community college system.
I do.
But I'm wondering if there's any concerted effort at this point by presidents and security people and so forth to push for money even in hard times like this, because the frequency of this problem is ridiculous. It's out of control, and I think even though they've got budget problems, this is something you can't get cheap on.
You're right.
In my opinion.
Yeah. And the colleges, to make y'all aware, we're looking at new call boxes all over the campus and stuff like that. So we are presently looking at stuff to do. We've already got the bids from the companies and everything. So we're in the process of looking at the new call boxes. Do I need to cut this mic off now? Okay. But we are looking at several, we got several different projects going on right now. Panic buttons, the call boxes, several different things that's going
How high
on.
on your list of the IDs?
Well,
Students?
all of that has to be run by administration,
I
so.
mean, you know, those basics,
Right,
yeah.
and that's a great idea.
Yeah.
But, you know, to be honest with you, until all of these issues started on these campuses, I don't think security was a big issue because not a lot of stuff went on campus. And then all of a sudden, boom, you know, you've got all these other issues.
Thanks.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
You've been here a while now, and your experience in law enforcement probably gives you a lot of insight into what types of things could or might be more possible on our campus. And of course, you're seeing some instances. So can you tell us a little bit about what you've experienced since you've been here?
Well, to be honest with you, I think this is probably one of the safest campuses that I've heard anything about. I went to a training a couple of weeks ago over at GTCC, and of course GTCC has armed police over there, and they still have incidences over there all the time. Of course, you're going to have a lot more trouble on campuses where you've got the kids live on campus, where you've got dorm rooms and stuff like that. But to be honest with you, this is one of the safest campuses that I've heard anything about.
Last year, we were told to lock our classroom doors. Is that still important to do?
It is a great idea to lock your doors and not let anybody in unless you let them in. Yes, ma'am. When you go into a class to teach, it's a great idea to lock your door. And I know over there where y'all at, when you've got customers coming in, you can't necessarily do that. But when you've got a classroom going on, it's a great idea to shut that door and lock it. Because nobody's supposed to be coming in and out of that door anyway while you're teaching class. Yes, ma'am.
We enforce the no cell phone in class, so that's not something that we'll rely on.
But y'all will have one, won't you? Well, hopefully you'll have phones, but hopefully in the near future you'll have phones in there. So, anything else? Thank you for being here. I appreciate it, and I hope you learned something.